Sagittarius. Someone is entering your life to stay. A soul who matches your fire. Sagittarius, there's a unique loneliness that belongs only to those who burn brightly. It isn't the emptiness of isolation. It's the ache of being surrounded, yet unseen. You've stood in rooms full of people who admire you, but few who truly know you. You've spoken dreams that made others fall silent, not because they didn't hear you, but because your vision frightened them. And you've dimmed your light more times than you can count, shrinking yourself to stay loved, softening your truth so others could stay comfortable near your fire. For years, you've carried the secret exhaustion of being too much, in a world that often prefers mediocrity. You've mistaken acceptance for belonging, applause for connection, and tolerance for love. But Sagittarius, the universe is shifting something profound in your energy. The air around you feels charged again, doesn't it? There's movement, warmth, anticipation. As if something or someone is approaching. Because they are. A soul is drawing near, one who doesn't fear your fire but recognizes it. Someone who doesn't want to stand beneath your light, but beside it. A heart that was molded to complement your rhythm, not contain it. And when this person arrives, you'll remember what it feels like to be seen, not for what you do but for who you are. If you feel this stirring already, this strange mix of hope and hesitation, pause here and breathe. Like, share, and subscribe not for me, but as your first quiet declaration. I am ready for a love that matches my fire, not dims it. Gate 1: The awakening of the fire. When you finally remember you were never meant to dim. Sagittarius, your soul has always burned with a rare, uncontainable flame. You were born with a spirit too vast for small rooms, too honest for shallow conversations, too visionary for people who live by limits. And yet, somewhere along your journey you began to soften that flame, not because you lost faith in yourself, but because you grew tired of watching others flinch when you were being real. You learned to shrink your laughter, to quiet your passion, to disguise your brilliance beneath politeness. You told yourself it was kindness. In truth, it was survival. For years, you've been the bright flame that others approached for warmth but rarely to understand. They loved what you gave but not who you were. They came to borrow your optimism, your ideas, your fire, but when your own nights grew cold, few stayed to return the light. And over time, that kind of giving begins to hurt. It creates a hollow ache that no amount of company can fill. The loneliness that lives inside connection. But something has been changing, hasn't it? Recently, you've felt a strange stirring. Like your soul is restless again, craving expansion after years of contraction. You're starting to sense that the people and environments that once felt safe are now too small to contain you. The walls you built to protect yourself have become prisons. The masks you wore to be accepted no longer fit. It's because your next chapter requires your full self, not the edited version. The divine is preparing you for a relationship, not just romantic but profoundly spiritual, that will remind you of your unfiltered truth. This connection will not enter your life to complete you, Sagittarius. It will arrive to mirror you. It will reflect everything you've suppressed, everything you've hidden under layers of endurance and independence. You'll recognize this person not by how they make you feel excited, but by how they make you feel safe in your own bigness. You'll meet them and suddenly realize how exhausting it's been to tone yourself down. Around them, you'll breathe deeper. You'll speak louder. You'll laugh without restraint. You'll remember the version of yourself that used to dream without apology, the part of you that believed in impossible things and made them happen. This person will not ask you to shrink so they can shine. They'll glow alongside you. You'll notice it instantly in their presence. The absence of competition. Where others might have tried to outshine or silence you, they'll amplify you. They'll be curious instead of threatened, grounded instead of jealous. It will feel almost surreal at first, because you're so used to relationships that subtly asked you to be less. When this person enters your life, it won't be through grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It will begin quietly. A conversation that lingers in your mind long after it ends, a meeting that feels like déjà vu, a connection that feels ancient. You'll sense that you've met before, maybe not in this lifetime but in another. There will be an ease between you that defies logic. You may resist at first. Sagittarius is fearless when it comes to adventure, but when it comes to vulnerability, you hesitate. You've been hurt before by those who said they admired your strength but secretly resented it. You've learned that admiration can turn into envy, and support can turn into control. So when this person arrives, your instinct might be to test them, not out of distrust but out of protection. And that's okay, because this person won't flinch. They won't chase. They'll simply stay. Their presence will be calm, steady, unbothered by your intensity. They'll understand your need for freedom because they have learned to walk unchained themselves. They won't clip your wings, they'll fly beside you. This is how you'll know it's safe. The divine didn't send them to fix you or to follow you. They were sent to walk with you. Sagittarius, this connection will serve as your mirror of remembrance. Through it, you'll rediscover your natural magnitude, the version of yourself you suppressed for the sake of fitting into smaller loves. You'll begin to understand that the loneliness you've carried wasn't a punishment. It was preparation. The universe was teaching you discernment, showing you that not everyone deserves access to your inner fire. You had to experience the wrong connections to recognize the right one. Every time someone misunderstood your passion as arrogance, it taught you the value of self-acceptance. Every time someone made you feel too much, it was the universe whispering, "You're just too much for them." Every disappointment has been reshaping your boundaries, refining your frequency so that when this new soul arrives, you'll be able to recognize them instantly, because they will match your light, not drain it. You may first meet them through work, travel, or a conversation that feels like alignment rather than coincidence. You'll notice how their words resonate at the same emotional altitude as yours. You'll talk about your dreams, your spiritual journey, your vision for the world, and instead of skepticism, you'll see understanding in their eyes. They won't say, "You're dreaming too big." They'll say, "Then let's make it bigger." And in that moment, something inside you will shift. The armor you've been wearing for years will start to soften. The walls around your heart will begin to tremble. You'll feel both terrified and alive, as if your soul just remembered what real companionship feels like. Because Sagittarius, your spirit has always known this truth, that love was never meant to make you smaller. The right love expands you. The divine is aligning this connection not as a reward, but as resonance. It's what happens when you finally stop settling for being understood halfway. You've done the inner work. Now the outer reflection is being sent. This person will not enter your life to complete you. You are already whole. They're coming to remind you that love isn't about halves finding each other. It's about two wholes creating something luminous together. You'll look back and realize that the loneliness you once cursed was the doorway to this meeting. That the waiting was not delay but divine timing. And that this time, Sagittarius, you won't have to hide your fire. You'll finally meet someone who knows how to hold it without fear. Gate 2, the signs before arrival. When the universe prepares your heart for what's coming. Sagittarius, before something divine enters your life, there is always a sacred stirring. A subtle rearranging of your world. You start to notice it in strange coincidences. In quiet whispers from the universe that sound like ordinary events but feel too intentional to ignore. You run into someone whose words seem to mirror what you've been thinking. You dream of places you've never been, yet wake up with the sense that someone's energy has already brushed against yours. You keep seeing symbols, numbers, songs, phrases, even old memories resurfacing, as if everything around you is rearranging itself for an encounter you don't yet understand. This isn't fantasy. This is alignment. For Sagittarius, everything in your life is connected through meaning. You are the archer, ruled by Jupiter, the planet of divine timing, synchronicity, and truth. When something big is about to enter your life, your world begins to vibrate differently. The people who no longer belong start fading into silence. Situations that once consumed your energy begin to dissolve. And you start to feel restless even if nothing obvious has changed. That restlessness isn't emptiness. It's space being made. The universe is clearing your emotional field, so that when this new soul enters, you won't confuse their presence with past patterns. You've been healing quietly, letting go of the ones who loved your energy but not your essence. The ones who adored your fire when it warmed them, but left when it began to burn too bright. The ones who said they wanted depth but drowned the moment you offered them your truth. Every goodbye has been a spiritual decluttering, every heartbreak a cosmic reset. And now the divine looks at you and says, "You're ready." This readiness doesn't come from perfection. It comes from honesty. You've stopped pretending to be fine when you're lonely. You've stopped forcing connection just to avoid silence. You've stopped confusing intensity with intimacy. You've learned that chemistry isn't enough if it doesn't lead to consistency. That attraction isn't love if it costs you peace. And because of that evolution, you're now vibrating at the frequency of someone who will not just enter your life but stay. When this person comes, the first thing you'll notice won't be attraction. It will be recognition. Their presence will feel like a familiar melody, one you can't quite place but somehow know by heart. There will be something unexplainable in the way they look at you, as if they see through every mask you've ever worn. You won't feel the need to impress or hide, because their energy will make you feel instantly safe. And Sagittarius, safety will surprise you more than passion ever did. For so long you've mistaken excitement for love. The thrill of the chase, the spark of unpredictability, the rush of a new beginning. You've lived for that. But this connection will move differently. It won't demand adrenaline. It will bring peace. You'll notice that your nervous system relaxes around them. You won't question your worth or wonder if you're too much, because this person will hold space for all that you are without blinking. They won't retreat when your emotions swell or your opinions ignite. They'll listen. They'll lean in. They'll stay. This energy is arriving to teach you what stability feels like when it's not boring. When it's alive, grounded, and expansive all at once. You'll realize that love doesn't have to be chaos to be real. It doesn't need to break you to be deep. This person will enter quietly, but their presence will echo. And the echo will sound like home. In the days before they arrive, your soul will start shifting in small ways. You might crave solitude, not out of sadness but as a way to prepare. You'll find yourself cleaning your home, organizing, releasing clutter, both physically and emotionally. You'll revisit old wounds one last time, not to reopen them, but to ensure no residue of the past bleeds into your future. That's the divine guiding you to clear the altar of your heart. You might also feel the urge to revisit your old dreams, the ones you buried when love hurt too much. Those creative sparks that once defined you will begin to reignite. It's not a coincidence. The universe is reminding you of who you were before disappointment made you doubt your worth. Because this new soul isn't just coming to love you. They're coming to collaborate with your destiny. You can't meet them from your wounded self. You must meet them as your becoming self. So, if lately you felt a pull toward change, if you felt your intuition whispering that something significant is on its way, trust it. That's not anxiety. That's spiritual radar. Your energy is being elevated to meet the vibration of what's destined for you. You may even find that certain connections start to feel uncomfortable. People who once felt close might suddenly irritate you. Places you used to frequent might drain you. Conversations that once entertained you now feel hollow. That's because your frequency is rising. You're outgrowing the vibrations that no longer align. Don't resist this. It's preparation. And as your frequency shifts, your perception of love itself begins to evolve. You'll stop asking, "Who will love me?" and start asking, "Who can meet me?" That's the question your soul has been waiting to ask. The person coming into your life will be able to meet you. Emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. They won't be intimidated by your independence or your need for freedom. They'll understand that Sagittarius doesn't love by possession, but by expansion. They'll give you both the grounding and the wings. You'll see synchronicities intensify as the meeting draws near. Maybe their name appears in random places. Maybe you hear a song that speaks directly to your heart. Maybe your intuition whispers their energy before your eyes ever meet. Don't dismiss these things as coincidences. Synchronicities are the universe's way of saying, "Pay attention. It's close." And when this connection finally crosses your path, you'll know. It won't need validation or interpretation. It will feel like exhale, like relief after years of holding your breath. Sagittarius, I know you've been patient. I know you've had to learn to be content within your own company, to become your own anchor when the world felt too heavy. That was not wasted time. That solitude was sacred schooling. Because only someone who has found wholeness alone can recognize a love that is equally whole. So when it happens, when this person stands before you, you won't question their presence. You'll simply feel it. The unmistakable calm of divine timing fulfilled. The loneliness that once defined you will dissolve, not because someone completed you, but because someone finally mirrored the light you refused to dim. And you'll smile, not in surprise but in recognition. You'll realize that the universe wasn't ignoring you all this time. It was preparing you. Gate 3, the arrival. When love finally meets you where you are. Sagittarius, when this person enters your life, you won't hear thunder or see lightning. You'll simply feel a shift. The air around you will change, softer, quieter, yet deeply alive. You may not even realize what's happening at first, because it won't come in the form of chaos or conquest. It will come gently, like dawn light slipping through the curtains. A calm kind of connection that doesn't demand to be noticed, it just is. You might cross paths in the most ordinary way. A meeting that feels random, a message that appears at the right time, an introduction that doesn't seem significant, until it is. But your soul will recognize it before your mind does. There will be no need to chase, no need to convince, no need to prove. Because when it's divine, it flows. From the very beginning, you'll notice something unusual about them. They see you. Not the version you show to the world, not the performer, not the philosopher who always has the right words. They see the rawness beneath your laughter, the tenderness beneath your confidence. They don't turn away when your fire burns high or when it flickers low. They don't try to outshine you, nor do they shrink before you. They meet you, eye to eye, energy to energy, soul to soul. For perhaps the first time in a long time, Sagittarius, you'll feel emotionally safe. And that safety will confuse you at first. You've become so accustomed to the adrenaline of inconsistency, of proving your worth, of interpreting mixed signals, of wondering when the ground would shift beneath you. This will feel foreign because it's stable. But stability isn't dull. It's sacred. It's what your heart has secretly prayed for, in every sleepless night. You told yourself you didn't need anyone. This person will have their own fire, but it burns differently. It doesn't compete with yours. It complements it. Where you expand, they ground. Where you scatter, they center. They will challenge you in ways that don't break your spirit, but refine it. They'll speak truth when you're tempted to run from it, remind you of your worth when your old fears whisper otherwise, and hold space when you forget how to be still. You'll notice how natural it feels to share your dreams again. Even the wild, impossible ones. They won't call you unrealistic or naive. They'll listen, nod, and then say, "Let's see how far you can go." That's when you'll know this connection is different. Because Sagittarius, your spirit was never meant to be tamed. It was meant to be understood. And this person will understand. They will admire your independence but also know how to meet you in your quiet moments of doubt. They won't need to fix you or rescue you. They'll simply be there. A steady, grounding presence that feels like coming home after a long journey. They'll remind you that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the bridge that connects two hearts. At first you might test them unintentionally. You'll pull back when things get too close. You'll question their intentions. You'll wait for the old pattern to return. For the moment when they reveal they were just another temporary chapter. But they won't flinch. They won't dramatize your fears or punish your hesitation. Instead, they'll stand there, patient, kind, unwavering, proving through consistency that they're here for the long haul. And one day, without realizing it, your walls will begin to soften. You'll start to breathe differently around them. You'll find yourself laughing without restraint, dreaming without fear, trusting without strategy. You'll remember what it feels like to love without conditions, and to be loved the same way in return. This person's loyalty will match your own. You've always been fiercely protective of those you love, even when they didn't deserve it. But this time, Sagittarius, you won't be the only one fighting to keep the connection alive. You'll see in their actions the same devotion you've given so many times before. They'll defend your name when you're not there, stand by you when life tests your spirit, and refuse to disappear when the path gets heavy. They'll remind you that real love doesn't demand performance. You don't have to earn their presence. You don't have to play smaller to be loved. You don't have to constantly explain your soul. You are enough even in silence. And it won't always be easy. True connections never are. There will be moments of friction. Times when your freedom instinct meets their grounding instinct. When your urge to run collides with their desire to stay. But every disagreement will deepen understanding rather than destroy trust. Because both of you will be learning how to coexist as two sovereign souls sharing one sacred flame. You'll learn the beauty of interdependence. Not needing someone but choosing them every day. You'll discover that love isn't about merging into one being, but about walking side by side, each carrying their own light. And you'll see that when two people shine together without fear, the whole world around them glows brighter. Sagittarius, this connection will also awaken your sense of play. You've spent so much of your recent life in survival mode, being strong, wise, self-reliant. You forgot what it felt like to simply enjoy another person's presence. This person will bring that laughter back. They'll remind you that life doesn't always need to be profound to be meaningful, that some of the most healing moments come through shared humor, unplanned adventures, and the kind of joy that doesn't need to be earned. It's in those small, ordinary moments, the shared coffee, the random song, the quiet evening under the stars, that you'll feel the magnitude of what you've been given. Because you'll realize that for the first time, you don't have to choose between love and authenticity. You can have both. This connection won't save you. It won't rescue you. It will reveal you to yourself. And when you look into their eyes and see your reflection, unmasked, unfiltered, unafraid, you'll understand that this is what you've been preparing for all along. The loneliness was never punishment. It was the universe clearing space for someone who could hold your fire without fear. Someone who could stay not because they needed your light, but because they were strong enough to shine with you. Gate 4. The sacred balance. When freedom and devotion learn to coexist. Sagittarius, love for you has always been a paradox. You crave connection, but you also crave freedom. You long to be known, but you fear being confined. You want someone to walk beside you, but not someone who walks in front and dictates your pace. And perhaps that's why it took so long for a connection like this to appear. Because your soul needed time to learn that freedom and devotion were never opposites. They are two wings of the same truth, and you need both to fly. With this person, you will finally experience that sacred balance. You will discover that love doesn't have to mean losing yourself. It can mean expanding together. You'll find that devotion isn't a cage. It's a compass that always points you back to yourself. And you'll realize that true freedom doesn't mean running away from commitment. It means choosing it consciously without fear, because your soul recognizes it as alignment, not obligation. In this relationship, Sagittarius, you will feel both grounded and infinite. There will be days when your fire wants to explore, to wander, to breathe. And instead of guilt, you'll be met with understanding. Your partner will know that your soul doesn't drift out of disloyalty. It drifts out of curiosity. They'll love you enough to let you roam, because they trust that your heart always finds its way home. This kind of love is not for the faint-hearted. It requires two people who are secure enough in themselves to allow the other to grow. It demands maturity, the kind that understands space doesn't equal distance, and silence doesn't mean disconnection. It's the kind of love that thrives not on possession but on presence. There will be moments when you'll need solitude to recharge, to recalibrate. In the past, this might have caused tension, as if your need for independence was rejection. But with this person, solitude will no longer be a threat. It will be honored. They'll understand that your alone time is where your wisdom deepens, where your creativity blooms, where your spirit finds its next horizon. And when you return, you'll bring that richness back into the relationship, making it even stronger. Likewise, you'll learn to hold space for them, to respect their rhythms, their quiet moments, their own sacred work of self-discovery. You'll realize that loving someone doesn't mean always being intertwined. Sometimes it means standing beside them as they find their own way back to themselves. And the beauty of this is that every reunion will feel new. A meeting of two souls who have continued to evolve, yet still choose each other. There will also be lessons in trust, deep transforming trust. You've been hurt before, Sagittarius. You've seen people promise forever and disappear at the first sign of difficulty. You've watched love turn into power games, honesty dissolve into manipulation, passion fade into silence. So your instinct might be to hold back, to keep one foot out the door just in case. But this connection will teach you that trust doesn't mean naivety. It means discernment. It means knowing who has earned your openness and giving it without fear once they do. Over time, you'll find that this person's consistency is what heals you. Their quiet loyalty, their gentle patience, their ability to show up even when life gets messy. All of it will reprogram what love means in your nervous system. The constant fight-or-flight energy that once surrounded relationships will fade. You'll stop bracing for disappointment. You'll stop expecting betrayal. You'll stop mistaking peace for boredom. And that's when love will deepen. Because for Sagittarius, love is never about possession. It's about purpose. You fall for souls who inspire you, who push you toward your higher self, who awaken your vision. This person will do that, not by demanding change but by reflecting back the best parts of you. They'll challenge your ideals, yes, but they'll also water your faith. They'll ask questions that make you think, that make you dream bigger. With them, you'll learn that love can be a form of growth, not limitation. Together, you'll create something balanced and sacred. A connection where both hearts are free, yet both feel safe. You'll explore together, travel together, dream together, sometimes fail together, but always return stronger. And the beauty of it all is that you'll never lose your individuality. You'll still be the archer aiming for horizons unseen, and they'll be the grounding force that steadies your bow. You'll realize that love like this doesn't just happen. It's the reward of years of self-work, of heartbreak turned into wisdom, of loneliness turned into strength. It's the kind of relationship that only arrives when you're finally ready to receive without fear. The divine had to strip away everything false before sending you something real. Because had this person arrived sooner, you might have mistaken them for just another spark in a sky full of shooting stars. But now you know the difference between a flame that burns briefly and a light that stays. And yes, there will be growth pains. There will be days when your independence triggers their fears, or their stillness makes you restless. There will be conversations that stretch you, moments when your old defense mechanisms try to return. But instead of running, you'll communicate. Instead of shutting down, you'll reach out. And each time you choose connection over avoidance, love will take deeper root. This partnership won't just make you feel loved, it will make you feel understood. It won't just comfort you, it will evolve you. You'll begin to see love not as something you fall into, but as something you rise within. It will call you higher, to become softer, wiser, freer, and more whole than you've ever been. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all is this. You will no longer fear being too much. You'll stop apologizing for your fire, your depth, your curiosity, your boundless heart. Because you'll finally be with someone who doesn't want you smaller. Someone who doesn't need you dimmer. Someone who looks at your light and says, "Shine. I'll stand beside you." Sagittarius, when love like this finds you, when it meets you on equal ground, it won't feel like fireworks. It will feel like sunrise. Steady, warm, faithful, and unstoppable. The closing, the eternal flame of Sagittarius. Sagittarius, take a deep breath. This moment is your turning point. For years, you've carried the ache of being misunderstood, the fatigue of loving with no equal return, the silence of being the strong one for everyone but yourself. You've learned what it feels like to give endlessly and still be left wanting. But that chapter is closing now. The universe isn't asking you to chase love anymore. It's asking you to receive it. The person coming into your life isn't arriving to complete you. You were never incomplete. They're arriving to remind you what it feels like to be mirrored, not managed. To be celebrated, not tolerated. To be understood without translation. You've walked through every season of solitude so that when this connection arrives, you'll meet it not from desperation, but from wholeness. Not as someone who needs saving, but as someone who finally recognizes the divine timing of their own heart. And when that realization settles in, something sacred will awaken inside you. You'll look back at every goodbye, every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, and realize none of it was wasted. Every heartbreak was a clearing. Every silence was a setup. Every ending was a sacred prelude to this beginning. Because what's entering your life now isn't temporary affection. It's divine reciprocity. A soul who matches your fire, your truth, your freedom. So when it arrives, don't hide. Don't shrink. Don't doubt that you're ready. You've been ready. Now say it aloud, Sagittarius. I am ready for the love that matches my fire. I am ready for the soul who stays. The universe is aligning your hearts as we speak. And when it finally happens, you'll understand. It was never about finding someone to walk your path. It was about becoming the light bright enough for them to find you. Your waiting is over. Your season of alignment has begun. And what's coming next is home.